Hi, this is Brian Forbes, and this is my Module 16 case study for EDL856, School and Community Relations. Now, this case study, titled Parental Apathy, mainly revolves around a situation at a school at JFK where the building does not really have much of parent outreach programs. There's not a lot of parent involvements in the building. It seems to have been that way for a little while. But we have a new assistant principal who's coming into a position at this school. She had just finished her master's degree, and one of her more recent classes was school community relations. So she seems to be very excited in regards to outreach to the community and ways to engage her stakeholders. And when she sees that things aren't really up to where she believes they should be, she wants to do something about that. So she attempts to arrange a public meeting with some parents with the help of her head principal, who is not exactly engaged himself, or at least in any positive way, in community engagement. So the meeting does not have a turnout that they would like or that they really had desired in order to make some headway in this area. And so we find ourselves at the end of the case study trying to figure out what is the best course of action. Should we be continuing with this meeting or not? And then where do we go from there? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what exactly is the problem, and then talk about what does that leave us with? What are the things that we know? What do we need to know? And then how do we gather that information? And then where will that lead us eventually? So the main problem is at JFK, at this particular school, it has somewhat of a history of low parental involvement. At least that's what we gather from the main principal through the conversation he has with the assistant principal. And so trying to figure out the parent meeting that they do create, why is there such a low turnout there? And then the principal asks the new assistant, should they move forward with this particular meeting? And he even says he's in favor of not moving forward. And that's where the case study leaves us is, should we be moving forward with this problem? And then no matter what we decide to do, how can we ultimately fix this lack of engagement? Now, some of the things that we know when we look at the problem outlined in this case study is that there are really two main people in this building, and then there's also a third party on the outside. Now, the first two, we have Mrs. Rose, which is the new assistant principal. She fresh off of her master's degree. As said earlier, she just got out of a school community relations course, and so she's really excited. She's got some good ideas. Well, we also have the head principal, who it doesn't name, but a male, who is fairly negative about his ideas as far as community not being involved. Parents are apathetic, which is where we get the title of the case study. And so those are the two main people. Now we also have a third, which leads us into the next thing we know, which is that we have a lack of outreach to the community, meaning that there's no PTA or PTO involvement, no other organizations or groups really that we know of, at least on the principal's end, that in regards to curriculum or student involvement. So that's kind of a big, red flag, is why is the community not more involved, or at least interested in being involved in the school that their children attend. Now, the other thing we know is that there's a lot of negativity, and most of that negativity actually seems to be coming mostly from the head principal. He doesn't believe that the community even wants to be involved, but really offers little to no evidence. And when Mrs. Rose has addressed him about what are some parents that he claims to talk to get the pulse of the community, as he says to her, he just offers that he talks to parents he trusts, but it really offers no actual evidence or names. And then that leads us to, while we know those certain aspects of issues, what do we really need to know moving forward? Well, in order to come up with a plan of action, we need to know, number one, why did parent involvement originally decline? We can't imagine that the school has just never had parent or community, positive community relationships. So what is it that caused that to decline? And then leading into what is the timeline of those events? So we need reasons and we need the timeline. Because to me, it could be possibility, at least one possibility, that this current negative principal could be part of the reason why parents are no longer involved. So we would need to look at that. And I'm sure there are many other issues that we could find historically through the school. It could be changing demographics. It could be socioeconomic status. It could be lots of other things that fall into that range. Parents just not being available. And then the last thing I would want to know moving forward are what are the current practices that we use in that building at JFK to have community outreach? Are we even attempting to get people involved? Because it just seems like the principal claims that no one is involved, they don't want to be involved, and therefore he doesn't want to waste his time attempting to get them involved. So we want to look at those practices and see what's not being done, what is being done, and then try and go from there. So in my particular plan of action, the first thing we need to look at is just this meeting that we're having where the principal asked Mrs. Rose, should we even try and move forward? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. There's no reason, even on a small turnout, why the school should ever cancel a meeting like that, because we want to engage those that did attend. We want them to feel like their voices are being heard and that they care. Or that we care about them, because if we cancel meetings like the principal suggests we do, that just sends even more of a negative message to the people who attended, and then all the people they talk to that we care so little that we are going to waste their time by inviting them to a meeting and then just canceling. So that's not going to be good. But we want to utilize the people that do attend the meeting also in order to create groups to inquire with them why other people didn't show up. Why did they show up? What is it that sparked their interest in coming to this particular meeting? And then what can we do as a group? How can we better as a school reach out to the community to try and determine ways to raise interest in the community so that we can better serve them, as well as them help better serve with us to serve their children. And we can even do that by offering to create a PTA and a PTO, which I know the principal in this particular case study said he didn't really want to do, but I'll kind of get to that in a moment. So another thing, part of my plan of reaction, is to look at a review of our procedures. So again, we want to look at what are we doing right now, and it doesn't seem like there's really a whole lot that the principal is attempting to do. But we would also want to look at what has been done in the past when engagement for the community was higher. Was there different actions in place, or has it always been this slow? And then we need to look at what are the strategies that Mrs. Rose is bringing with her from her master's degree. We also want to look at other schools around us and other methods. We want to look to other administrators in other districts or whatever we need to do in order to find what works so that we can get our community interested. And then the third thing here is lead the way. I mean, first of all, by offering to lead these new groups, I think that really takes some of the pressure off of the principal, because it seems a lot like he just doesn't want to be burdened with the extra time and the effort that goes into having a PTA. It seems like he either doesn't want to be challenged, or he puts way too much value on his own time instead of trying to serve the building. So offer to do all those things for him and see if that doesn't help relieve some of the hesitance that he has. And then the other thing would be to contact other schools, because we don't always need to reinvent the wheel. There could be other schools within our own district, whether that's elementary, middle, other high schools, that do have stronger relationships with their community. So what are they doing that we're not doing? And then let's find a way to work together with those people and other community partners, other organizations that are already out there, whether it's community centers, retirement homes, religious affiliated groups like churches. What can we do and what do they do that we can combine to serve this community? So really, to benefit all kids, the important thing here is that I want to make sure that we are gaining access to things. And the things that we want to gain access to are people, first of all. The parents and other volunteers who are able to come to our building to help us with the facilities, to help us with book drives, to help us with organizations, with teachers' aides, and all kinds of other things, helps just the operations of the school function better. And it also allows for programs to run more smoothly where staff wouldn't always be able to handle those things on their own. Another thing is that funding is also an increase in this way, because when you have an interested community, they want to help out and they're more willing to donate money. They're more willing to accept tax increases or approve bond issues for votes and things. So that's really important. And the last one is that when we have a relationship with families at home, they look at the school as an extension of that family, as people who are working together that have standards for their children, and that raises the academic achievement because we have those higher standards and we're all working towards them. And it also helps decrease issues with behavior because we know that everyone is communicating. So we know that teachers are communicating with parents about what's happening at school. They're communicating with us what's happening at home so that we can best serve the needs of a student and hopefully get them on the right track and stop anything that happens before we get to a negative behavior. So looking kind of back at this case study, some of the issues as I reflect, the first thing is, what was I thinking as I read this? And my first thought was, who's really at fault with this? We have the principal who's talking about, the community's apathetic and they don't care, but it really kind of sounds like he doesn't care. To me, he doesn't want a PTA, he doesn't want to form new groups, he's not really offering to try and move forward on even the meeting where a few people are at. So if he can't be bothered with that, then what can he be bothered with? Some of the feelings I had really was, I felt bad. I felt sad for the community because I felt like they didn't have leadership at their school that cared enough about them or their kids to go above and beyond to try and recreate or to add new groups in order to increase engagement with the community to better serve the students. And so I just felt like that apathy was probably created more by the principal. At least that's the impression I was getting. And then something I valued during this is not just because this is the core school community relationships, but I'm valuing that relationship because I know that a strong relationship with the community is going to benefit the school in many ways that aren't always apparent. And so a strong relationship results in a strong school. So just kind of real quickly, I'll elaborate on these in just a moment, but how do I make sure that families and community members contribute to a school's success? Well, by moving forward on that arranged meeting, I engage those stakeholders and leverage the interest to promote further interaction with the community. And then how do I, as an administrator, respond to diverse needs? Well, I examine the past, the current, the future situation, and the way we're communicating as a school with the community, and then look on ways to change that, either by using new technologies, by using practices from other buildings, or looking at history and culture and demographics to see what works best for them. And the only way that's going to happen is by having a dialogue. And then the third thing here is how do I mobilize resources to address those problems? Well, by relying on neighboring schools, by communicating my ideas, discovering community needs through community organizations and things like that, I'm using everyone available to me to try and best serve my student population. So then, how does that really have anything to do with academic success? Well, the first thing is families involved with curriculum increases relevance for students. Then by improving those relationships with families, I create shared standards that everyone can work towards at home and at school. I create opportunities for people in order to come into our building with volunteerism and other things in order to use the expertise of others to help educate our children. I promote the personal well-being of every student. I want students to know that when everyone works together, that those children are going to feel like everyone cares about them. I know that incorporating community interests and the culture of the stakeholders that are involved with my school helps create a curriculum where students and their needs they feel valued. And then increasing the involvement also leads to funds and things that increase opportunities both academically with textbooks, adoptions, and other things, and extracurricular activities after school. And that increases student engagement as well. And then last here, community engagement for families and stakeholders. Families need to know we're working for them. This is about their kids. They need to know, number two, that that they should be informed. They need to know what's going on in our building, and an informed community is a better community. And then last, stronger relationships lead to a stronger school. I've said that before. and we can't do it without them, and they can't do it without us, and we're in it together. So anyway, that's my case study.